The fourth chapter of Poppy Playtime is already exciting many fans. What will the continuation of the storyline be based on? What are the players' further objectives? Which monsters and characters will stand in our way? And when can we expect the release of this project? Be sure to like this video if you're interested, and let's get started. Despite the fact that it hasn't even been a month since the release of the third chapter, which took place on January 30th, a huge number of people already want to dive into the continuation for very simple and understandable reasons. That's why today we will discuss everything we know about the fourth chapter of Poppy Playtime, and we have a lot to talk about. And the first question I would like to start with is about the monsters and characters. Who will be the monsters and characters in the fourth part? How will they relate to the player? Will the player have friends or only enemies in the fourth part? Well, at such an early stage, it is quite difficult to discuss such topics, especially when it comes to the main antagonist. However, remembering the dialogues with our friend Poppy in the third chapter, we heard some very interesting things from her. What? Here she claims that catnap is the final challenge for the player, prepared by the prototype. Therefore, Huggy Wuggy and Mommy were only the beginning. And this suggests that in the future, our attention will be focused specifically on the prototype experiment 1006. We won't encounter any other main enemies besides him, only secondary ones. But if I'm not mistaken, the developers confirmed the existence of ready concept art for the main antagonist of the fourth chapter. Although perhaps they were talking about the prototype. Who knows? In any case, the mysterious experiment 106 will definitely make itself known again, as Poppy confirmed at the end of the third chapter, hinting that we are descending into new depths of the factory for Revengi for the Hour of Joy, and more. Will Poppy and Kissy Missy return? Absolutely. How can we do without them? There are still some mysteries and questions surrounding this duo, especially considering the ending where an unknown entity attacked Kissy and now we can only guess. What happened there? Is Kissy alive? But regardless, we gathered here not for that. Which character will be the next one to play a role in the continuation? Of course, it will be Ollie, the mysterious voice from the phone and the player's main helper in the third chapter. His true identity remains undisclosed, and behind him may lie a very dark truth, which I dedicated a separate full-length video to. I recommend checking it out. And to put it briefly, Ollie will definitely appear in the new chapter. I think that's obvious. As for completely new monsters, it's much more complicated. I can say right away that they were also being developed long before the release of the third chapter, but who are they? Unfortunately, there is simply no information. However, we can recall a considerable number of various characters that we encountered in the first two chapters in the form of toys and others. Dinosaur, Bronze Candy Cat, and so on. Some are still waiting for their appearance, and the developers have shown tons of unused monster concepts that didn't make it into the second chapter of the game. By the way, they don't look bad at all. The thing is, it was stated that if any character receives proper attention from fans and becomes popular, they will consider introducing them in the fourth chapter. Unfortunately or fortunately, this didn't happen, but one monster still had a colossal hype through fan animations. Can you guess who I'm talking about? I'm talking about Daisy, who was used in almost every fan animation almost 2 years ago. Of course, it's already too late, and I doubt that any of the aforementioned monsters will ever appear in the game. But who knows the developers? It's also worth discussing the locations of the fourth chapter of Poppy Playtime. The game ends with a victory over catnap and Ollie's words that we are now one step closer to the prototype. After that, together with the Poppy doll, we descend into darkness on an elevator. So what awaits us down there? Maybe the game files will provide an answer. And yes, they will. Enthusiasts managed to find unused areas, or rather, their names. For example, in the room where we complete the chapter, the word prison was found, presumably previously planned as a sign or a large sign to hint at the continuation. And remember where else this happened? In the second chapter, after the train crash. In early versions of the gas production zone, signs were even found leading to the laboratory section. And this is extremely interesting. If we are really approaching the main antagonist of the game, Experiment 1006, then visiting areas such as a prison or laboratories would make a lot of sense. Why? Because that's where they kept him, as we can understand from the purple cassette. It may seem like an insignificant detail, but during the conversation, it is clarified that the prototype's house is the laboratories, and Cat Napalm's house is the prison. Therefore, other similar monsters also resided and were tested in these places, and I would love to see something like that. Of course, these locations could have been completely cut and the idea abandoned. So, the setting of the new chapter is 100% unknown to us. And how can I not mention the Playtime Park, which caused a small stir among fans? The assumption that the next main area will be an amusement park arose thanks to one of the posters in the 3rd chapter. Such posters are hung all over the train station, and it's hard to miss them. They depict Poppy against the backdrop of roller coasters and present the new Playtime Park. Although the theory of a whole park appearing in the 4th chapter sounds tempting, I wouldn't be so sure about it. These posters were not created as Easter eggs for the next chapter, and therefore they don't make any sense. In my opinion, it even sounds absurd. It seems more realistic to visit the aforementioned laboratories, dark and truly eerie corners of the factory. Be sure to join the comments and tell me what you think about this and whether you agree with me. No matter where we go, there is still one important question regarding the continuation of the storyline. What are the players' next objectives? Let me remind you, the initial task was to find the missing colleagues and unravel the secrets of this mysterious factory. However, in the game's finale, our friend Poppy rewards us with a cassette titled Hour of Joy, and after watching it, we finally learned the truth. All the workers were killed and ultimately consumed. So why should we continue this path? Well, at the very least, there is no way back and we are forced to stay. As Poppy informed us, the prototype knows about us and our approach, so it won't let us leave easily. Trying to escape is pointless. We have dealt with Katnapom, who was the final trial of 126. Therefore, only one enemy remains. Can you guess who? It's only the prototype and its secrets. That's what we will dedicate the 4th chapter to, but don't rush. As I understand it, the finale is not so close. The developers plan for a minimum of 5 chapters, and possibly even 6, which is very cool, so we shouldn't expect a complete conclusion from the next chapter. I assume the player will delve into the darkest places of the factory in preparation for the battle with the prototype and uncover new details about it. And maybe, just maybe, we will witness their first encounter. I can't wait to find out what will happen next in reality. Well, I think that's the rough outline of what we know about the 4th chapter, and I'm sure everyone is interested in one question. When? It seems impossible to know the answer, but I actually have a fairly clear idea of the timeline. The gap between the release of the 2nd and 3rd chapters was 21 months, or, roughly speaking, 2 years. Agree, that's a long time. Will the developers spend even more time on the next chapter? Here, I have good news for you. Recently, we were informed that the 3rd chapter actually took only 8 months to create, and the remaining time, the team was working on the Playtime Online project, a game based on the original product. Therefore, I can assume that the development of the 4th chapter will take about a year. Firstly, considering that they plan to improve the quality in many aspects each time. Secondly, considering that the number of employees at Mob Entertainment is constantly growing. So, this time frame seems quite realistic. However, we shouldn't forget that, in addition to the main game, the company has many other projects. For example, the aforementioned multiplayer, which needs updates and support, or even other games that are currently unknown. And all of this, of course, requires time. So, if the developers don't fully focus on working on the 4th chapter right now, we shouldn't expect a release at the end of 2024. Although they could. In the best case scenario, I would expect a release around mid-2025. That seems achievable, even taking into account the work on secondary projects and the time spent on them. And for now, let's wait for news and the first teaser trailer. To not miss anything, be sure to subscribe to the channel with notifications so you won't miss any new and useful content. And don't forget to write comments. Share your opinion on today's topic and let me know if you liked my video or not.